Sega and shooter fans have probably heard of the name Technosoft. They're the company behind the popular Thunder Force and Herzog series. While they did make titles for the PS1, I didn't expect them to be a part of the launch lineup for the Japanese region. This is Nekketsu Oyako, a beat-em-up game that's very reminiscent of titles from the 16-bit era like Final Fight and Streets of Rage. While the game has never been released out of Japan, there is an English translation for this game which is pretty neat. If I can summarize this game in one word, it's familiar. And this term can work both ways. On one hand, it brings a sense of comfort, immediately knowing what you're getting into. On the other hand, it brings a level of disappointment, a sad case of keeping it safe as it were. And in a time where beat-em-ups were arguably waning in popularity, plus the excitement of going into a new console generation, those are some high stakes, right? As I mentioned briefly, the game is very evocative of other beat-em-ups of the previous generation. Reviewers and players tend to mention this, and it's kinda unavoidable since the game tends to reference, if not embody, tropes and designs of similar games. The game's title translates to Hot-Blooded Family, which is appropriate for the game's plot. Previous child prodigy and now housewife Saiko Hibino has been kidnapped by the Haraguro-dan, an evil crime syndicate led by a man named Hiro Goro. It's up to her husband and former professional wrestler Rando, daughter and fighting prodigy Ryo, and her assistant Torataro Minoru to save her. A very straightforward story and kind of fitting for the time if you think about it. Each playable character has their own stats and movesets to make them a little different from each other. Rando is the slow powerhouse, Ryo is the fast yet weak attacker, and Minoru is your all-rounder. While this all impacts gameplay to an extent, it's not by much since they all have similar elements and play by the same rules. You use the D-pad for movement. You can double tap a direction on the D-pad to dash, or you can alternatively press R1. X is for jumping. You can press it again to do a double jump. Square is for attacking. If your character is standing near an item, square is used to pick it up. If you picked up a weapon and want to drop it, triangle is your button. And lastly, circle is for performing a character's super move. Like most games of the genre, using a super move will deplete a portion of your health. A thing that's not mentioned to the player, at least from what I read online, is that there's a move characters can do by doing a Hadouken motion. This move can be done infinitely and does not harm the player like a super move, which is really neat. The controls are what you'd expect. Again, really simple and familiar. I appreciate the dedicated button for dashing and the option for double jumping. Additional maneuverability is always appreciated. However, I do have one point of contention: square for item pickup. This game is very generous in giving items to players, and a lot of times, I've experienced fighting enemies near items. And since attacking and picking up items is mapped to the same button, I think you get what I'm talking about. I wish they mapped that functionality to the triangle button since it's already dedicated to dropping a weapon. You know, same element on the same button. Moving on, gameplay is as you'd expect. Go through a stage, beat enemies along the way, and a boss fight at the end. I want to get this out of the way. To me, this game feels slow. It's not the lack of fast-paced action, but rather how the game flows. Fighting enemies can be a bit uneventful. Stages can overstay their welcome, and boss fights lack pizzazz, if that makes sense. At one point, I thought it was super slow because enemies can sneak in a punch of their own when I'm comboing them to death. Apparently, it's just this game because I tried other games to see if they share the same behavior, and they don't. Kinda weird and annoying. Anyways, there's a total of 5 stages having different settings and designs. As I said, they can be a bit long. While this gives the game a chance to have multiple areas and environments, did they have to? I know it's weird that I'm arguing against variety and stage presentation, but a lot of them, I feel, were unnecessary. A reason they're like this is for introducing stage elements, like traps, but it could have been implemented in earlier stages with a bit of planning and better design. And speaking of traps, A lot of them can be a bit cheap, like they're there to kill you and take away lives instead of providing a challenge or another mechanic. Granted, some are telegraphed properly, but the others, you'll know them if you know them, which is kinda annoying at times. Shoutout to stage 5, the boss rush stage, and its spike wrecking ball trap. It's fun and not fun at the same time. Enemies and bosses are whatever. There's not a lot to them really. There's not a lot of variety in the henchmen and they can be a bit brain dead. The thing going for them are their wacky designs, but let's be real, that's not enough. The only entertaining one is the squids with boxing gloves. That's about it. Items are either weapons, health pickups, or extra points. They're generously scattered throughout a stage, making it a bit easy for the player. Weapons are on the simpler side, but they get the job done. Health items are really effective in this game and not stingy at all. A player can get double health up to a green bar, which is awesome. And enemy health in this game is communicated really well, something I'll praise this game for. Speaking of lives, it's worthless in this game. While you can configure your amount of starting life, it means jack shit because you have unlimited credits, which means play all you want. And speaking of insignificant, the score system is also pointless. While you get extra lives at 200,000 and 700,000 points, which are very specific values mind you, it's just there for the sake of being there. Too bad there's no high scoreboard for this game. Nope, I'm not kidding. I didn't edit them out of the video. There's no in-game way to record high scores. So what the fuck? Audio and presentation share the same description. Hit or miss at best and flat at worst. Some assets are good like the intro, the character portraits, and the character sprites. The BGM is fine. They're fast-paced and upbeat. And some sound effects are okay. But everything else? It lacks energy and life, you know? It's so average that nothing stands out. Even the good things I brought up, they're just fine and not something that's memorable in this game. Now some might say the wackiness is the strongest part of this game. Case in point, boxing squids inside a whale. But as I said earlier, that's not really enough. Hell, it even feels like the absurdity has not reached its full potential. I know I've made this game sound and look bad, and it's not. It's not broken or unplayable. It's just average and lacking. I'd say this is a play once experience and that's it. Frankly, the only reason you should get this for your PS1 collection is because it's a launch title. But I think it'd be better if you got another game instead. If you're really adamant about getting this game, you might want to look at the Saturn port, which I heard is the better version. However, they're selling for a high price, so you might want to prepare your wallets. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey guys, this was something. Anyways, if you like what you saw, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. I want to reach 100 subs before we reach the second half of the year, and we're so close, so please help me out on that. I have a Twitter at KenAthomos if you want further updates or if you want to hear me ramble. There's also a Ko-fi page if you want to further support the channel. Links are in the description. Take care!